Welcome to the Coming Out Happy podcast. You're going to come along with us. My name's Keely. I'm a seasoned somatic therapist. And my partner, Dani, she's a 2-time published author and life coach. Let's hype her up. And as we navigate the balance between running 2 businesses, Coming Out Happy, our first company, exploring sustainable well-being, and our second company, FeelSwell Experiences, a leadership development company, you're going to see the real behind the scenes and also get practical tips for a balanced and joyful life. You're going to join us for some real candid conversations about relationships, self-discovery, leadership, in a real down-to-earth way. So from shared stories to laughter, the Coming Out Happy podcast is the go-to place for those seeking wisdom and simple joys and living well. So whether you're here for insights or a good conversation, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. We're on a mission to inspire 1 million people, so you can be a part of that mission by hitting follow and subscribe. And trust me, we're going to give you the best of the best in these episodes. So let's get into it. Here's what it's like to live in alignment. Let's talk about it. Let's have some fun today. Let's talk about values. Let's talk about all the fun things, because honestly, I learned that this year, if I am not connected to my core values, my emotions will choose my life for me. And so when I'm connected to my core values, those are the things that govern my decisions every single day. So can we talk about core values? And I honestly, I don't think that you need to choose core values and be like, oh my gosh, these are the core values that I have for my entire life, and they're the top 5, and they can't ever be changed out with any other ones.
They definitely can change
as
you grow, because they're affected by your...
Yeah,
what?
No, go.
They're affected by your environment sometimes, and by your caregivers, by people that you grow up with, sometimes just like where you live. Mm-hmm. So I think as you evolve, your core values evolve as well.
They do. They sure do. I actually
I kind of defined core values.
I would love to hear your definition.
Okay. I wrote this down.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, it says core values are the fundamental beliefs that guide our actions and decisions. They represent what is most important to us and help define our authentic selves. Recognizing and understanding these values provides a compass of navigating life's choices.
That's exactly what I said originally. I think that's true. Yeah. That when you are not connected to, almost they're like little anchors. Imagine that we're on a boat together, okay? We're all on a boat. And the only thing that's going to keep this boat in place, which we need it to stay in place, why? Because we're going to go snorkeling or something. And so we have all these little anchors, and each of us have 5, and they're keeping the boat in place, and they're keeping it there so that we can do the thing that we want to do. Does that make sense? That actually kind of did.
I think people feel more fulfilled also when they're living in alignment. Yeah. And I know you were saying like don't pick 5 or whatever, but I really do think when you are aware of just a few, it doesn't have to be like a hard 5 of them. When you are taking those actions that align with that, like the example I have also is like family. If family is a really important one to you and you spend time prioritizing your family, you feel fulfilled because you're doing those different things that are aligning with a really important belief that you have, which is family is important to me. Yeah. So I think if we're really talking about fulfillment more on this podcast, it starts with these core beliefs. It starts with these values.
Definitely. I mean, I would love to share some. Would you?
Of yours?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually recently chose core values that are important to me right now. And doesn't mean that these are all in my like top 5 life core values, but these are important to me right now. Let me grab my notes here, that way that I can share this with you. And I'll share some, just a little bank of some that I have here that you can think about for your own life. Number 1, well, they don't really go in order, to be honest. So don't take them in order, but accountability, connection, growth, health, and work ethic. So those are my top 5 right now that I am focused on and that are genuinely helping me decide what actions I take every single day in order to create this in my own life. So let me give you an example of some of them that you could think about, and maybe you want to write these down, maybe you want to pause the podcast, you want to think about it, and I just encourage you not to overthink it, but just circle some that resonate right now. What are the ones that resonate the most right now? Accountability, adventure, balance, boldness, cleanliness, clear communication, compassion, connection, consistency, courage, creativity, curiosity, decisiveness, diligence, discipline, fairness, faith, forgiveness, generosity, grace, gratefulness, growth, health, humility, integrity, intuition, kindness, loyalty, modesty, openness, peace, presence, punctuality, purpose, quality time, resilience, responsibility, self-reliance, simplicity, spontaneity, tolerance, toughness, work ethic. Those are just a few. But maybe you want to think about it in your own life and say, okay, what are the ones that are important to me right now? And what am I working towards? And how are they going to help me get there?
Yeah. One of the ones that I chose as we were going through those also was balance and consistency, which I think only really showed up for me, or I was aware of it this year. I didn't realize how important being consistent was until I looked at the relationships that I have. Keely has actually always said that I am a very consistent person.
Yeah, super consistent.
How am I consistent?
Well, I was about to say, I know exactly what she wants when she's upset. A sandwich. No, I'm just kidding.
We were joking about that with my parents the other day.
We were out to dinner with, quick rabbit hole. We were out to dinner with my parents and Danny's parents, and we were just joking about like what happens when the other's upset, when one partner's upset. And I was like, oh, I have a list. I know exactly what to do when Danny's upset. I have a list of things. And number one on my list was get her a sandwich. And so, there's these things, but really consistency shows up for you as like, I know that you're very grounded in your values. And one of the things that's genuinely so important to you is relationships. Like that is number one. She's a Leo. She's like, look at her. She's just so excited. She loves that I'm just like talking about her.
But it's all relationships that I want to be consistent in.
Yeah.
Because throughout my life, I learned that it was important to me when it also wasn't shown to me.
So what kinds of things do you do? She makes an effort every single day. Not every day, but she makes an effort every single week to see when she's hanging out with her friends. She makes an effort to tell her family that she loves them. She makes
show up for you.
She makes an effort to show up for me in the most amazing ways, and obviously you see a lot of it through our social media. She really does go above and beyond to show that she's here and because she has the capacity.
I want to embody someone that is consistent and says, and just that you can really rely on. So it is very in character for me to be a consistent person. So it helps with decisions that I want to make. When I am thinking about my week, let's just say on a Sunday, what I'll do is think about who do I need to reach out to so I can be consistent? What do I need to do for work so I can be consistent towards those goals? What do I need to do for myself so I can be consistent in the things that I'm doing? And I think it's just the same thing from there. And also another one that I learned that was also very important to me is balance. On the last podcast episode, we were talking about priorities, and something that I think that's just very interesting is learning how to balance what's important to you. It's not about balancing every single thing and thinking that it's all going to go extremely well, but balancing the couple priorities that you have. Your life is never going to be a perfect circle of every single thing is being prioritized. But balancing the few things that are at the top of the list and learning how to manage your time with those is really important. And I really have learned, and I am still learning, how to better balance my life to focus on the few things that I'm focusing on.
What about when life throws you a curveball?
Oh, it does.
Let's give...
What was the question?
What about when life throws you a curveball?
What was the question in that?
Well, how do the values tie in? What is the importance of the values when life throws you a curveball?
I still think you stick to those.
Yeah.
No matter what's going on, your beliefs usually stay true unless something really does shake it up where you question your values.
Let's give an example, because that's all we want to do here is we want to give real tangible examples. Okay. One of my values right now is connection. Okay, that's one of my values. Let's just say someone dies. Okay, the worst thing, nobody wants to talk about it. We all die, but no one wants to talk about it. Someone dies and I'm grieving, obviously. Am I going to do that alone? I mean, I may try, right? Because it's part of my personality to isolate, not my personality. It's part of something I do to isolate and pull away. But if one of my core values is connection, I know that to move through that, I need to connect. I need to lean on my community. I need to trust. So can we use them as a foundation? Absolutely. Can we use them as a way to guide our life and a compass? 100%.
Is there an example that you would have of when you actually shifted your priorities? So it's not when you followed with it, but when you changed. Or I said priorities. I meant values.
Yeah. I think I was really focused on work probably 2 years ago. And I was making a lot of money and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. But I was really, really depressed. And I had to shift from pouring so much into work.
What was the value?
The value was probably work ethic or, success or something related to that. And I lost track of my mental health through that. Yeah. And so I made a really big shift in that moment.
Because so what was the shift in the value? Like what would be the new value that you created?
It was self-care.
Okay.
It was self-care because I neglected myself in order to work longer hours. Well, it was in that moment. Yeah. I couldn't really work more. It wasn't giving anything to anyone. I wasn't producing anything quality because I was lacking so much of giving myself what I needed.
I think it's hard though also when your values change because you want to be looked at like you are such a hard worker, but ultimately when you have to give up that facade and change. I mean, and it wasn't really a facade. You really were working very hard. When you have to give up that identity,
I hated
and belief, it's hard.
But guess what? I went on a different journey, and the different journey was, who am I without work? And when I went on that journey, I learned a lot about my own worthiness and myself. So I don't believe that at any point what we're experiencing is by mistake. I believe that each thing of me pivoting, even though it was pivoting to really focus on my mental health, to now it's like, okay, Keely, you don't have to take a whole week off in order to just focus on your mental health. I know how to balance that because I'm doing it every single day. I've made it more practical. I've made it more like I'm not playing catch up. I'm just doing it and I'm embodying this new way of being. But I couldn't get to that point until I said, okay, everything has to stop here for a moment. I need to come over here and I can't do anything else but this. And I genuinely couldn't. When I was focusing on the issues that I was experiencing and just the depth of hurt and pain that I was carrying, I didn't have the energy. I mean, you remember, I didn't have the energy to do anything else. I was exhausted. It's emotionally exhausting to go in and work on yourself. But is it needed? 1000%. Could I have just done it on the weekend? Yeah, but I didn't know how to compartmentalize. I didn't know how to do that. I had to learn how to do that as well. I'm not saying that that's like the healthiest thing to do, but when we have work to do, we have relationships, we have people to show up for, maybe you have kids, maybe you have, people in your life that are depending on you, we have to figure out a way to move through it, So, yeah, I hope that was helpful, but it was definitely something that was challenging. It was not easy. But I made a pivot and I focused on one thing for a while, and then I learned how to add the other back in. It's like baking something. And actually, you can't really do this with baking. You can do it with cooking because you add a little bit of something and you're like, okay.
Yeah, baking is like a one and done.
Yeah, I wouldn't compare this to baking. I would take that back, Keely. But I would compare this to cooking because sometimes I'm like, needs a little more salt. Okay, I'm going to add a little more salt. No, it needs pepper. You know what I mean? And like you just add in little bits and pieces. So we can't talk about food. I'll drool. Anywho, let's move on. What are 3 different ideas and like really practical pieces of advice that could help somebody who is navigating connecting to their core values? And I hope that you at least circle 5, maybe even 3 or 5 of the values that we shared, because I want you to see what's important to you right now.
And the list that Keely shared also isn't
it's not extensive.
All the values, yeah. But I think it's important to know just a few that could be on your radar. So some things that could help you really just start to understand your core values better, which again are really just the beliefs that you want to live by. It helps you take action easier when you're, you know, living life and figuring out what it is that you want to do, how you want to show up, all these different things. One is journaling, which is a very helpful thing. A lot of people love it.
Mm-hmm.
So
wait, can I touch on that for a minute? When I was experiencing all of this, I don't know if you remember, but I got up every single morning and I made sure the first 5 to 10 minutes I was reflecting on certain questions. I believe at that time, don't quote me on this, I think that I was going through the Untethered Soul. So there was reflective questions in a journal guidebook that I went through during that time. Having something that can guide you, even if it's just prompting you questions, to sit in the morning and ask yourself those questions, that can be really helpful because it's just going to help you get more clear on what those values are. And if it's the first thing that you're thinking about rather than going on your phone. So give yourself the first 5 to 10 minutes every day and just do that. Just leave the room, go wherever you need to go, you know, find a little spot on your floor, maybe put a pillow down and just do that first. That can be really helpful.
That's it.
That's all you had?
Yeah. I think just journaling and being aware of maybe even 3, maybe 5 is too much. Figuring out 3 things that are very important to you. 3 top values, and then ask yourself each week, how can I align and show up with these values in mind? How can I show up in my relationships using this? How can I show up at work using this? How can I just show up for myself with this in mind? And taking the actions to do so, that will help you reach that fulfillment each day. You know, fulfillment just sometimes seems like it's such a daunting task, especially when you're younger. But thinking about being in alignment sometimes can just mean living fulfilled. And that's it. It's not reaching all of your goals at the end, but it's, how did I really want to show up each day? How did I want to live? And am I living with that intention in mind?
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. That really is.
Thank you.
Take notes, go back, listen to this, share this with your friends. This could be life-changing for people that feel so swayed by their emotions and feel like their emotions dictate every single thing that they do. They're just like, I don't want to do it. You know, at some point you get sick of just being where you are and you get sick of staying stuck in whatever it is that you're doing. So take the core values, have them be your anchor, let them guide your decisions, because life will change when you allow yourself to follow what your heart and your soul really wants to go after.
And I also would maybe question where these beliefs come from as well. And maybe these will change throughout time. But I know when you were, you know, at a different place in life before we met each other, and me too, I definitely had different core values. And I think those really did shift after I came out, after I started to understand who I was outside of living in New York, and all of these different things. So I think they can really evolve throughout time, throughout having different kinds of relationships as you're really starting to find yourself. That's really all that it is.
I love it. Yep. That's all we have for you today. Make sure that you are following this podcast. You're subscribed to it. We're on a mission to have 1 million people subscribed by the end of the year. So make sure that you are on that journey with us. And we are super excited for you to just stay connected. If you have questions, you have something you want to hear about, you have, anything that you want to share, go to team@comingouthappy.com to send us an email. That is our email, team@comingouthappy.com. And we will talk to you very soon.
See you next week.